welcome to the Fixing Football podcast. I'm your host Martin Naylor, and this week we have a full squad available for selection. So I'm joined by Liam O'Meara, Scott Naylor and the returning Luke Foley. The topic of discussion this week was football and rivalries. Are they as big as they used to be? Is the local derby less important than the competitive derby, the people who are fighting for a position in the table? Does that take precedence over them local rivals who you've niggled at for years? So it's something we wanted to chat about for a while, and we got into it along with a host of other topics, and a lot of clubs got some stick this week, so keep your ears open for that. Thank you everyone who's been listening so far and following us on Twitter and Instagram and subscribing on YouTube. It really does go a long way to helping us, keep this channel moving forward and doing something that we're really enjoying. So thank you very much. Please continue to do so. You can find all our information at www.fixingfootballpodcast.com, and don't want to go any further, so let's just get straight into the episode. Hello boys, we've got a full house. It's Luke, it's good to have you back, mate. Congratulations. How's father treating you?
It's an eye-opening experience, to be honest, but it's good to be back. It's been good to listen to you three Muppets talk about absolute nonsense and hear about your anti-United agendas. So
we mainly covered Man United for you.
Sure, yeah. It's weird that I can't defend United and you just going in on it, especially last week, saying that Old Trafford's not fit enough to host any European competition. And
have you got a response to that?
No.
Right, so the FA have got it pretty spot on. Scott, how are you doing, pal?
Very, very well. A bit disappointed after the weekend's result, but otherwise can't complain.
Oh, we'll get into that in a minute. Liam, another Bolton win. How have you been, mate?
Yeah, very well. Very easy win for Bolton over the weekend. So
2 early goals, weren't it?
Yeah, I say easy. They did come back into it. We did let them back into it, Northampton, and they did finish strong. But we held firm, and I think we've got a bit more familiarity at the back now. So obviously we're very close to what is, I think, our best 11 back fit. And hopefully we can follow up with a win tomorrow, which will be Tuesday night away at Wickham.
Oh, that's good. Luke, you've had a couple of weeks off now, mate, and United are in the midst of a bit of a slump. They've got some wins in there, but it's still not great around the place. Where can you summarise the last couple of weeks for Man United?
Well, if we just start on the weekend's game against Sheffield, not a great performance, to be honest. I did see that you was kind of digging in Maguire and Evans, saying, I can't believe these two are starting, but it was probably the best kind of suited game for them too, where they was basically Sheffield just lumping in balls for Harry Maguire to kind of defend, and that's why he got man of the match. But attacking wise, we're still not there. I think once we Sunday's the big test against City. I think
is it at Old Trafford?
No, it's at Old Trafford. No,
it's at Old Trafford, right? Cool.
Yeah.
Well, that leads nicely on to sort of something I wanted to ask about today. And me and Scott were talking this week because it was Arsenal v Chelsea. And obviously we're not local to London, neither of us, but there are teams, and that's probably our biggest match of the season. And that's built on more of a personal rivalry. Liam, do you think that competitive rivalries trump local rivalries these days?
Possibly, yeah. Possibly. I tend to find that as you go along in a season, the teams that are in around you, those games tend to matter more, I think. So, yes, in principle. But I would say in a lot of the lower leagues, that's probably always been the case. It's probably a symptom of Sky Sports that we herald these older derbies, and they do matter to the fans on the day. But I would say, in terms of what's on the line, it is very much the teams in and around you that matter the most, yeah.
Who's Bolton's biggest rival? Like, what's the match, if you could pull it out of a hat, like the dream FA Cup draw for some sort of big rivalry? Who would that be? Well, it's in my head like it's Wigan or Blackburn, I don't know.
Yeah, I wouldn't call it the dream FA Cup draw. But yeah, it's definitely Wigan, I would say, nowadays. It's a rivalry that has quite intensified over the last sort of 10, 15 years, and I would say part of that is to do with the fact that they're a team we're competing with regularly and the locality of it. And there's also, I think, a rawness to that derby. It's quite brutal. It's not sanitized. It's quite a nasty game these days, to be completely honest. It's really big police presence. It's a Category A police fixture, which is the highest level now, that derby. And
they'll be kicking off at like 10 o'clock in the morning, don't they?
Yeah, it's ridiculous. It is really, really fierce game now. And it wasn't always the case, but it is something that's very much intensified more.
Luke, what's Man United's biggest match of the season?
Well, I just want to go back to Lou's point. So you don't think it's United anymore, Liam? Because I remember when Bolton used to sell DVDs when you beat us 1-0 at Reebok. It was your biggest game of the season. I remember you saying, "Oh, I can't wait for United game." So obviously this is changed now to Wigan.
No, I would say United is the team I hate the most, without question. I despise Man United, and I despise the fact that hearing you talk about United in your accent, which is, a quite strong Bolton accent that you've got there, Luke.
I don't think it is. I think yours is stronger than mine.
I think when you talk about Bolton and United rivalry, you're talking about a town that I think is predominantly supports Man United with no intention of ever going to any games. And that sits very uncomfortably with me. It always has done. I've hated it for years. You've got a really big football club in this town, and yet more than half of the town supports Man United. So by all necessity, that is a local game. I don't understand why United fans pretend that it's not, because I know for a fact how much that game means to the United fans that live in Bolton.
Well, that sort of brings me onto it. That is a massive game in terms of geographically. You would call them really close rivals. But competitively, there's nothing, and there's never really been anything between Bolton and Man United. The odd game here and there. So, Luke, that's a very one-way sided derby, wouldn't you think?
Kind of, yeah. I think
I'm saying Bolton fans care more about that match than United fans.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, but that's, as Liam said, Bolton's not in the Premier League anymore, so I can see Liam's point of. I completely understand Liam's point of view, but from a United fan, yeah, but Bolton's just the local team that.
Well, Liam's point of view is mental, because you don't become the biggest club in the world only having fans from that place where you are. Yeah. Otherwise, just the biggest city, whichever the biggest city, Istanbul or something, they would be the biggest team in the world. Galatasaray, they've got like 10 teams.
That can add some needle, though, from, like Liam said, as someone from the town, and there is a big club in the town.
Yeah.
Still, fans are, I guess, for lack of a better term, defecting to Man United, and it's, naturally, obviously, me and you, hot calling the kettle black, we can't really talk, but...
Oh, we've well defected.
I also want to say on this, while we're talking about this particular, and I expected this to come up very early, but I don't hate. There was a lot of the time when I was younger, people like Luke would say that I was jealous of Man United.
People like Luke.
Yeah, and maybe in hindsight, they were probably right, because it's been over a decade since they won the Premier League, and that hatred has calmed. So maybe I didn't like that they were winning everything, but I don't have to really worry about that anymore.
Oh, that's a snide blow. But Luke, what is United's biggest match then? City. It's got a City or Liverpool, isn't it?
It's Liverpool. In my eyes, it's Liverpool. Just from their past kind of triumphs, I suppose. They are probably, I think, the two biggest teams in England. I think if you look at it, I think people abroad would say either Liverpool or United are the biggest teams, and we've had the most success. So that's why I think Liverpool's our biggest rivals. Plus, they are, in essence, local. They're only 20 miles down the road from us. So it's... Yeah, I think City... If we was competing against City, I think the rivalry would be there is still a rivalry, but I think if we was competing and for the title against City, I think it would be more fierce. But currently, City are miles ahead.
Is it that just because City have overtook United too quickly? Say they've not hung around at the same level as Man United for long enough to become that competitive rival.
There was a stage where it was still, we were still competing, and I think, yeah, you're right. They've just gone light years ahead of us, and it's just been a case of there is always going to still be a rivalry, but obviously it's the same city. Well, Old Trafford's in Salford, but yeah, it's. I still think Liverpool are our main rivals.
Got this weekend we had Arsenal v Chelsea, the FFP derby, number 2 of the season. But online, there were people calling it the Friends rivalry because both our fans at one point were chanting, "We hate Tottenham." It's just like Tottenham seems to be our biggest local derby. But personally, I don't know about you, but Arsenal v Chelsea is my biggest match of the season. The match that probably I want to win the most. That or Man United, I teeter between the two. But
yeah, I'm probably in the same boat as you on that. I think probably, because you and I support opposite teams, there's probably a bit extra in it for me personally. I think it's a weird one because I think a bit of familiarity breeds some contempt, and I think we've had some really hotly contested and sort of angry games against Spurs over the last few years, particularly when we made them drop the title to Leicester. That's still a bone of contention that Spurs fans hold now. Battle of the Bridge and all that shit that gets banded around. So Spurs are a team that I particularly enjoy beating, and I think that for me personally, Arsenal is the game of the season for me to win, for Chelsea to win. It's that's the one that means the most.
Is that something that's been born out of competition as well? Because Arsenal and Chelsea have sort of been around. Arsenal was the team that Chelsea came sort of overthrown as a competitive rival during Abramovich's early years and got into it. And I think that's because before that there wasn't really it was a London derby, but that was about it. There was nothing really fiery about it particular.
Yeah, and I think there is an element of that when you're not really competing. It's like Chelsea's a bit of a weird club in that we have some local derbies, but because of the lack of competitiveness usually between them, like Fulham's our nearest rival. But Chelsea Fulham it's a game we want to win because they're our neighbours, but I don't think the majority of Chelsea fans would place it above Arsenal, Spurs, even Liverpool. Like the last, the Abramovich era made Liverpool one of our biggest rivals because we had a period where we just played each other every season, every cup, every Champions League. We just kept getting drawn against them over and over. And we had a fairly similar thing with Barcelona in our very early in Abramovich's era. We seem to always get them, and it adds a bit of extra needle. So I think the frequency and also, that competitiveness, because for a long time it was just Man United, Arsenal at the top. And that was, funnily enough, that was the game for a very long time. Man United, Arsenal was the biggest rivalry in the league. And it was the game that everybody would stop and watch, regardless of who you supported. But I think that us then sort of crashing the party a bit, becoming that third team in the Premier League race, I think that sort of maybe added a bit of extra fire to the Arsenal-Chelsea fixture. And then, us becoming so dominant over a few years and you guys falling off, and now it's sort of tables have turned back the other way. There's a lot of layers to it. It's interesting.
So let's stay on that for a minute. Liam, did you watch the Arsenal-Chelsea match this weekend?
I did watch it. I did.
Give us your quick review of that, and then I want to get Scott's thoughts a bit deeper.
I think both teams can be happy in different ways. I don't think either deserved to win. There was an element of fortune for both sides, I thought. I thought Chelsea look a lot better now. They do. And I think
the last 3 games, they've come on, haven't they?
Yeah, and I think Cole Palmer has played a big part of that. But even the midfield's starting to play games together. Like, you've got really talented players now getting a bit of familiarity. There is a consistency with selection. So these things will continue to improve. They were probably the better side, Chelsea. And yes, they went 2-0 up, but I don't think they were dominant either. So when Arsenal obviously had a bit of fortune to come back into the game, and then essentially really made that pressure count and got the second quickly, that wasn't completely uncalled for either. And so I think it was a relatively fair result, but I think both teams probably were happy. I think fans will be disappointed, but I think if they took a step back from it, they probably thought they wouldn't be even competing in this game maybe a month ago. So I think you can see the progress there.
I just Just a quick one then. From our chat, Scott, it seemed like you weren't too fussed in regard to your team being 2-0 up and then coming back from a draw. Is it if that was, say, Liverpool or City, I would be absolutely fucking fuming. It does seem like you was like, oh well, we're still doing again. If it was United against Liverpool, it would be all dramas.
It'd be 8-0 to Liverpool if it was.
No, it's true. It would in no way be a draw.
There we go. Yeah,
I get your point.
Like,
I get your point.
Seemed like you just seemed a bit like, oh well, yeah, we played all right. I can see who's progressing, but really, like you said, that's your rival. You should be absolutely fuming.
No, you're right. And there's again, it's a layered, considered approach from me. So I'm, as much as Arsenal is for me the game to win in the season, I'm also fairly realistic about where we actually are. You can see the name on the shirt. We may be Chelsea, but we are not the Chelsea that we used to be. And I think only a fool would try and pretend that we are at the top of the table where we used to be. So I think Liam made quite a good point in that if you rewind 3 or 4 weeks ago, if you said to me, would you take a point against Arsenal, I would have snapped your hand off. And the last couple of games have been a little bit better. So
at the beginning of the game, if you offered me a point, I think I'd have took it.
So in answer to your point, Luke, I was very disappointed with the result because we had that game and we should have been able to see it out. But it also spoke to what kind of team we are at the moment. We're not the finished article. We have, as Liam has sort of alluded to, players who haven't played together a lot. I think we've got 22 new players who are all trying to. There's a manager trying to find a system, and there's players trying to find some chemistry, and it's all. And if that's the kind of performance that we can put in against a team who's allegedly going to win the league, which I massively disagree with, and we've got a brand new manager, brand new players, if that's what we can do to a team who's allegedly the finished article, I'm very excited for what can come. So I see what you. Yeah, the model club allegedly. We'll get into that, I hope. But yeah, so yeah, I was very disappointed. It came across maybe a bit more accepted because it's one of those where, realistically, if we're as bad as people say we are, we shouldn't have had any business getting a point. But in the balance of the actual game in and of itself, I was very disappointed because we should have been able to wrap that game up.
Correct. Now, Martin, obviously from your perspective, were you happy with a point? And would you say that Arsenal are the model club that teams like Chelsea should be looking at?
We are, because that's what everyone's doing. But that's not the point.
Can you explain on that? When you say that's what everyone's doing, what exactly do you mean?
Buying young talent and bedding them in. You're doing it on the extreme level. United are slowly doing it with randoms, but keeping hold of dinosaurs who they're trying to get out of the club. It's sort of City's model, but they've got a lot more money to throw at it, so it's a little less conservative than what we've done, even though our spend has been really high. And it's sort of investing at all levels. The model of the club is what everyone needs to follow. It's why we spoke when we did the Man United episode about getting everybody on the same page, from the chairman right the way down to the playing staff. That is having the correct model, and that's what Chelsea haven't done and it's bedding in because Pochettino's got his hands on the players now, but there's still been that sort of disconnect between the playing staff and the people who are buying the players. That was obvious because that's what everyone was saying. That's what we said that United were missing, is having a director of football, someone who's in charge of in between the board and the playing staff. And that's what Arsenal have got in place, and that's why we're on the up still.
But you're not winning anything.
Not yet.
I think it's ambitious to think that you invented this model.
No, we didn't. We're just a model at the moment.
Yeah, but you've won nothing.
Not yet.
All right. Okay, then.
Yeah, we will.
Can we talk about, right, on this note, and I need to get into this because it's been driving me insane, and I've not really had the chance to vent about it.
Here we go.
Not much. You want to see our WhatsApp? Fucking hell.
Yeah, well, the fine listeners, hopefully viewers soon, don't get privy to some of the. Well, we need to maybe shouldn't share any screenshots. Actually, that'd be a bad idea.
Yeah,
but
no.
So here's my take on this whole Arsenal being, the best thing since sliced bread.
By the way, this is. I don't know who's telling you this. This is just what every bookie and predictor in the land is telling you.
You've just said the model club.
Yeah, we are. We are a good model of a club. Yeah.
1-0.
Not
Anyway,
yet.
Please, Scott, I'm interested.
so if I'm an Arsenal
I'm going
fan,
to cut
right?
this.
If I'm an Arsenal fan right now, I am pissed off with Mikel Arteta, Edu, and the whole this whole new model that you've got, because you ran City closer than anyone would ever thought that you would have, and probably Arsenal fans included, last season. And I feel like this season, with a lot of key players being sold by Man City, the Gundogan's, the Mahrez's, the Laporte. Who else was it? There was someone else big who left. Can't remember.
Sterling.
Obama.
Oh no, yeah, that was before.
Yeah, Sterling and Cole Palmer. Yeah, Cole Palmer. I'm sure City may be wondering what they've done there. And so I feel like Arsenal were in a position this season where you had a real shot to like really go for it. Okay, let's keep our foot on the throats and let's try and push. And I feel like with Declan Rice, that was a massive step in the right direction. Brilliant signing. No complaints about him. Jurriën Timber, well, we don't know because he was out first game. Remains to be seen. But you spent the remaining money and the remaining moves on Kai Havertz, who you didn't need, and he's shit anyway, and David Raya, who is no better. Perhaps could be worse, could be slightly better than Aaron Ramsdale. And my opinion on Aaron Ramsdale, my opinion on this is that Aaron Ramsdale is not good enough to win Arsenal the league anyway. So I agree that Arteta should have upgraded the goalkeeper. But instead of chucking 60 million on Havertz and loaning Brentford's goalkeeper, why not chuck 60 million at a Jan Oblak or a Mike Maignan or someone of that ilk? Because we know that a really top goalkeeper can win you a trophy, sometimes the trophy. So if I'm an Arsenal fan, I'm raging that we didn't really attack those key positions where you did it with one, but you seem to just bottle the rest. And I don't really. I mean, you're an Arsenal fan. What do you think? I feel like they've really missed an opportunity.
No, I don't think we've missed an opportunity. No one knows anything why. Only Arteta knows why Havertz joined. He's looked better in the last couple of games, but he's still a mile off where he needs to be to replace Xhaka, and he's meant to be an upgrade on Xhaka, and he's not hitting them levels yet. So, and with Raya, I mean, again, you just got to look at all the other work that Arteta's done with the squad since he come in, and hope that this is along the same levels, that he's going to find a minimal improvement. I didn't see a massive improvement, and I've said this before. I didn't see Raya as a massive upgrade on Ramsdale, so I didn't see why it needed to happen. But I'm not pissed off about it though. I don't think we're not weaker. No one's flashing up. Liverpool are showing a bit of form. I'm not really worried about them either. So anger is misplaced.
Well, just while we're on that note, Granit Xhaka, you mentioned it. Thanks for saying that fucking useless prick's name. The worst footballer who's ever existed in the Premier League.
I'm sure he's got about 17 goals against Chelsea, so that's probably why he don't like that.
I couldn't give two shits so many goals he's got against us. He's the worst player I've ever seen. But I wouldn't necessarily say that you won't. I don't know if weak is the right term, but you certainly don't look as good. You don't look as fluid or as free as you did last season. Maybe because you were playing with no expectation last year. Maybe that's something to do with it.
Yeah, on that was something that I've noticed. We look like we haven't hit even third gear yet, and we're joint top, and we've played City, Man United, Chelsea, and Spurs, and I feel like we've still not got out of the traps properly yet. Like everything's flowing. Now, whether that rests on people being fit at the right time, but everyone has them issues, I don't really know. We don't look like we're firing full on yet, but again, I'm not worried about it. And if we don't win this title this season, I'm not worried about it. I still think we're along the right paths, and it's going to take a lot to shake that belief that I think has been instilled by being the model club. Boom, back to you, Gimps.
Maybe you should spend £1 billion on young players like Chelsea have done.
I'll come back to you in a second, Luke. I'll deal with you in a moment.
Speaking of spending £1 billion, let's do it, Luke.
Fucking hell, yeah. I think just finishing up on Arsenal, I think the problem that you're going to have is City haven't addressed some of those key players leaving. They've tried to, like Doku's come in for Mahrez as an example. not a patch the same player. He could be eventually, but he isn't right now. And I feel like this could have. You may not get another chance as good because City will be like, right, we're going to go ape shit in the next window and buy, or maybe not. They never really break the record or anything, but I feel like they're not going to give you as good a chance again to improve your squad that much more than they will, if that's more so what I mean.
Yeah, again, but this is all off the back of definitely our worst performance this season, and we still didn't lose. And your best performance this season.
Yeah.
And you didn't win. So
while
while Chelsea may be on the up, the gap is still massive, in my opinion.
Oh, yeah. I mean, the gap is big between the two. But I feel like, on the balance of what we've seen, we could close it quicker than I possibly thought. But I'm not sure. Remains to be seen.
Luke, I want to take it back to the derbies and rivalries. Growing up, the matches versus Liverpool, why are they still the biggest matches for you?
Biggest views, biggest eyes on the match. I think if you ask any kind of fan of the Premier League, they say what's the biggest game of the season, they'd probably say United versus Liverpool. Liam's shaking his head, saying he disagrees. Probably Bolton versus fucking Blackburn in Liam's eyes.
No, I don't think it. Well, I mean, probably globally it is United Liverpool, but for me, I would say that if you ask that question of what's the biggest Premier League game to most domestic Premier League fans, I think most would say North London Derby now. To be completely honest, I'd say that.
Right now.
Yeah, I'd say so. I'd say that's the big game. I think United versus Liverpool, it's just so horrendously one-sided. Like it's like a first round FA Cup match.
That is true. That is true.
What is it? There must be like 15 goals in the last two games for Liverpool at Anfield. I honestly don't think anyone really cares about that game anymore. I think it's like one Premier League title between them in like 20 odd years or something like that. So, North London Derby for me is the bigger game now.
But that match is always more important. The North London Derby is big because it's always, regardless of Tottenham's competitiveness, it's always quite a nasty one. But when Tottenham are competitive, then it's a really good game. And that's when we see it. What are you shaking your head at, Luke?
I can't believe we just let that Liam talk absolute nonsense again with his anti-United stuff.
I didn't see it. I thought it was pro-Liverpool.
He's trying to put the fucking knife in, say United have been getting battered by Liverpool every time, but it's still a massive rivalry. There's still a lot. The games, there's an intensity to the game every time they play. Even though
maybe from Liverpool, but I'm not seeing much intensity from Man United.
This is the point though. Like it seemed like just going back to Chelsea and Arsenal, it was like, oh yeah, draw, we'll take that. Again, if it was United Liverpool, it would be up in arms like, oh, you've lost a 2-0 lead against Liverpool, your biggest rivals. It'll be all over the news. It'd be like,
see, I think this is the problem. Is I don't think there would, and I don't think there's really any derby game where that happens anymore. I agree with you. I think it should. I feel like in these games, there should be extra. People should care more and give more of a shit if you draw or lose to these big rivals. But I think the fact is, I think on the whole, I don't think people really do anymore. And I think it's the same with even if it is a massive game, like you see in the Merseyside derby, no one cares because Liverpool batter them every time. They should care, but no one really does.
Luke, can I just say, you're saying that, right, in the week of the Manchester derby, which you've not mentioned. Like, the Manchester
talked about it before.
Well,
we talked about it before.
No, you didn't.
I did.
You said that Liverpool was bigger.
It is bigger.
I can't get my head around that.
I can.
You can't get your head
around. I can understand it.
I think if you ask City fans at the moment, they'd say they hate Liverpool more than they hate United.
Yeah, I'd agree.
No, I'm being serious. No, I work with a lot of City fans and they hate Liverpool. With the rivalry they've had over the last 5-6 years at the moment, they hate Liverpool. Like I would say that at the moment, that game means more to City fans.
Well, this was my point originally, that competitive rivalries mean more to people than local rivalries, and getting that one up that people, it's sort of been pinned as before. Like the City Arsenal matches were the biggest 2 matches last season, really, regardless of the results. I think that's where that Liverpool That's why a lot of United fans hate Arsenal. It's nothing to do with local. It's because for so many years, United were great, then we were good for a little bit, and then United were great again, then we were good again. And that's where that rivalry's been. That's why United fans hate Arsenal fans, because they've no class.
No, United fans aren't bothered about Arsenal. That's not what that was last year. The only reason United fans wanted City to win the league is because if Arsenal won it, they're the ones that haven't won it for years. That's all that is. It's nothing to do with Arsenal rivalry. That's just a load of nonsense. None of them mentioned Arsenal for 10 years. Then all of a sudden it was popping up, I hate Arsenal. Like,
yeah, because we haven't done anything for 10 years.
Exactly. But because if you'd have won the league last year, it would have put a real emphasis on the fact that they're just sitting there sort of almost not bothered that City win the league every year. And if I was a United fan, I'd be embarrassed of that, I think.
All right, back to you then, Liam, about Bolton. Let's talk about Bolton-Wigan rivalry. When was the last time you beat Wigan?
8 years ago.
8 years ago.
Wow, is it that long?
Wow.
Yeah.
What was the result this season?
4-0 at home.
Right, okay.
So
have you been in separate leagues for a while though? Has there been times in that period where
some of them, but they've got our number. Even historically, like they beat us a lot. A very handful of games where we've come out on top against them. Yeah, they just seem to be on Derby Day in our heads. We do struggle, and a weakness of our current side is that we do struggle in huge games, particularly at home.
Particularly at dawn when you kick off.
Well, exactly. Yeah, that's it. You know, these games kicking off first thing in the morning. So, yeah, it is a bit of a weakness for it. But, you know, I'm not happy with that. You know, I don't just go, well, look at this bad thing as well. I don't like that we lose against Wigan, but at least it's not 8-0, I suppose. That is a...
Liam, a question I was going to ask, what is that match that's not particularly a local rivalry or even that often a competitive rivalry, but what is that one match or what's that one team that you just hate, that you've always hated playing against, you've always hated going to, you've always hated the fixture, you know it's going to kick off, you know something's going to happen?
10 of them. The two that spring to mind are number one, Everton. Can't stand Everton. Like, everything about them. The classic club that thinks that they have some kind of God-given right to success, but they are possibly the most negative fans in football and never not done anything as long as I've been alive. So they have no sort of grip on that. And secondly, is Tranmere. I despise Tranmere. I grew up watching us getting beat by Tranmere in such big games and them absolutely lording it all for us. That's probably, in terms of Bolton, the team that I grew up really sort of understanding what rivalry meant, because, yeah, we had United, but, like, when we were in those Tranmere games, like, you could feel the energy in the ground.
Why don't you like the Scousers, Liam?
Well, Tranmere aren't Scousers League. They'll be very keen to tell you that. They're from the Wirral. And
You won't be happy with that.
Apparently it's different.
Fun fact, my granddad was buried on Tranmere's ground. Well, his ashes were scattered there, there was no coffin involved. Have some of that. Scott, what's your match of them? What's your match of that you hate?
So this is less of a Chelsea always lose at them play. So that game would either be Palace whenever they're on a losing streak, or Bournemouth away. They're always the shitty games. But the team, other than the obvious Arsenal Spurs, who I hate more than anyone, I cannot stand losing to, is Newcastle United.
I knew that was coming.
And I'll explain why. Because somewhat similar to what you were saying about Everton, they have the most entitled fucking fan base in the entire world. They think that because they've got half a big stadium that someone decided not to fucking finish one year for some reason, that they have some God-given right to be in the top echelons of the Premier League. And it fucking enrages me that the year they got a Saudi owner and didn't actually spaff all the money away is the year that they decide, we'll get Champions League this year. Fucking arseholes. I knew that they would. Little rats. And I hate them. And here's another reason I hate them. All the pundits buy into them. Like Newcastle. Oh, they're great fans. They deserve good football up there. Great stadium. No, they've got half a stadium. Why do their fans deserve it more than anyone? They ain't fucking done it. The last time they won a trophy was about 1907. No fucker who is on earth now was alive the last time. Newcastle did anything of note. And tell a lie, they won an FA Cup in the fucking 50s. Fucking useless. Absolutely hate them.
Liam, it's a good job we don't censor this podcast because that would have been a nightmare editing section, that.
Well, good. Also, we could do with some clips, so I'll have to get that on Newcastle's Twitter.
Luke, what's your match? What's the one you hate? Who's the team? What fans can't you stand?
Arsenal.
See? Why? Because you've got no class. That's why. Jealous, horrible people over there.
No, I just talking about fans. Very toxic fans.
What you sound like? It's what you three sound like tonight. AFTV, Gimps.
No, we're talking rivalries now. We're talking rivalries, and the FFP are going to make some more. We're going to make rivals of our own. So we're now enemies of Newcastle United.
We're picking a fight.
Yeah,
I think, Luke. Tell me why you think, Luke, Arsenal fans are toxic.
Hold on, Liam. We're not going there. That is the dumbest, stupidest question you've ever asked, and you've asked many. I want to get back to the point.
I want to hear Luke's reasons.
Shut up. Luke, the question was not necessarily competitive or local rival. So I'll give you mine then, and then you can base yours off that. But mine is like Stoke and Birmingham. I hated them, especially away. I hated them fixtures. I always hate them. I hate the clubs. I hate everything about them matches. They've done nothing but try and kick the fuck out of our players. They're horrible, and they love it. They lap it up.
I'm sure you like Stoke. You like Stoke, don't you, Liam? That's another Bolton favourite.
Ah.
That was underhanded. That, Luke. Don't like that. People can't see Liam's reaction, but you've crushed him there, and that's not fair. So let's just get back to the question.
I'd say Everton as well. I think that from all Liam's kind of points, I think they've been in the Premier League too long, and at one point they did seem to have our number. We used to seem to struggle all the time against Everton. Yeah. Obviously, ex-United cat was going to.
We all agree Everton are stinking the place out.
Everton. Yeah. Down with Everton.
They absolutely are. Yeah.
The stadium's going to look nice though, but we could do them going down. Liam, is the thing... Do you think local rivalries need to be like pushed more by companies like Sky and by the TV companies? Do you think they need to be highlighted more?
I don't know. I don't want to incite riots. No, I don't. I think things have to be genuine. You can't force these things, I don't think. Which is why competitive rivalries generally are better, because if you force it, look at Scott got a good example earlier, Fulham Chelsea. You could never make that a rivalry. Like, really. You couldn't. What could you, other than like, I don't know. I can't think of a single way you could make that a rivalry.
Something would need to happen in a fixture, in a Chelsea Fulham fixture. Something bad. Like, I remember we had
an atrocity or something. Like,
we had.
It'd be bad.
There was a couple of seasons when Petr Cech got injured against Reading and fractured his skull. That then made Chelsea Reading for a couple of years a bit of a tasty game, because the fans were like, "You motherfuckers injured our goalkeeper," even though it was total accident, completely unintentional. But that added a bit of extra fire to it. So I think, like you said, you couldn't force that. You need an incident of some kind to spark it into life, or have them competing at the same level. And I think that's kind of what Chelsea. That's what made Chelsea Liverpool such a good fixture for a while.
That's what Chelsea are trying to do. They're trying to get down to Fulham's level.
Listen, don't you worry about us. A couple of years, we're back at the top. We'll win a league. I bet we win a league before Man United do. I'll put that out there right now.
That's
we'll
a hot
win the
take.
title again before Man United. It's not. Oh yeah, it is a hot. I'll call it a hot take. Chelsea will win the league again before Man United.
Well, you better add, because you spent all that money.
Yeah, United have done it on a shoestring, apparently.
Oh yeah, you boys are brassic over there.
Can't even do up the stadium. Can't even do the stadium.
Skint, they've had to loan Amrabat for 10 million. The Skint.
Just on that then, I suppose with the London rivalries,
there's too many.
There's too many.
Fucking hundreds of them.
Yeah, but I think in our kind of area, I think we don't all hate each other, I suppose, but there is in the northwest. I think the rivalries is a lot more intense up here than it is in London.
Clubs could join together, then, Luke. Like Chelsea and Fulham, just
Cheltenham or
Cheltenham. Like I've always thought Rochdale and Oldham could be one team. I've always
it's the same thing. Same thing.
Exactly. Like I think they both play in blue as well. Just I think that could happen. West Brom and Wolves.
What about Bolton Wigan?
What would you call it? Bulgan.
Oh yeah, Bolton Charlie.
Bolton Charlie.
Bolton Athletic.
Oh,
I don't know.
sounds awful.
We're spitballing dumb
Tweet
ideas.
us with your ideas of clubs that can form together.
We want the people's suggestions of the ultimate mashups of local teams to join together the footballing world and create some more rivalries.
Saying that though, do you reckon there is? Obviously, none of us are in London. Maybe there is a bit of rivalry down there, and the city feel it when they all play. I suppose us all being up here in the northwest, we kind of feel it more up here. The teams around here.
Yeah, there will be an element of that, and I think it's probably died off a bit because I remember when we were growing up, there seemed to be more northern teams in the well, at least in the Premier League. You had a few, and it seems to have tailed off a bit. Of the likes of Blackburn and Bolton are no longer in the Premier League, and that keeps those rivalries out of the wider audience. Obviously, still locally, it'll mean something to those fans, but it stops it becoming projected on a bigger stage. So maybe that's trick that plays a part as well.
Luke, do you think social media is a big thing for creating or making rivalries just bigger than what they are, or changing the course of people's opinions?
You tell me. I'm not even on it. Don't know.
I know. I actually, the one person I shouldn't have asked that question to.
Well, the thing that social media has brought my attention to is the absolute love affair between Man City and Liverpool fans. They call it the City Pool era, where City won 5 league titles and Liverpool won 1. So somehow that's an era of 2 teams. I don't know how that's worked out. But they, for lack of a better term, fillet each other as to how good. Oh, we were so good. It was such a good era. Look at us, how good we were. Fuck off. What absolute fucking gimps.
Put them on the list, Liam. They can get it as well.
Newcastle and City Pool fanatics. You can all fuck off.
Right, boys. Before we go, we need a fix. It's the whole point of this thing. How do we make derby games mean more? How do we bring more eyes onto them, make them more important, aside from the competitiveness, maybe it be local derbies? Scott, what do you think?
I'm going to sort of preface this by saying that I think that local competitive, wherever the rivalry stems from, it's important that these things are organic and they happen either through familiarity or through competitiveness or whatever it is. So I don't think one's better than the other. In terms of a fit, I think this comes down to culture hires and people within the club, because we've gone past the point of English players at English clubs only and local players at local clubs only. That ship sailed and the toothpaste is never going back in the tube. So what do we do now? Feel like you need to hire people either who work in the club or in and around the first team who were able to impart that history and that tradition on players. When a new player arrives at Liverpool, for example, somebody, whether it be the club captain, the manager, someone who works at the club, a big figure. For some reason, the woman who works on United's front desk is coming into my head. What's her name, Luke? The woman who all the new players have a picture with. Oh, it's me and fucking Gladys or whatever. What's her name?
Not a fucking clue.
Fucking hell. Anyway.
Sheila.
So someone like that. I'm not saying do let the club secretary
Sheila?
I don't fucking know. You're a United fan. You should know.
What, I should know the fucking receptionist?
She's all over Man United's fucking social media account.
I don't have social media.
Oh, you're in the wrong game. Anyway, the point being is somebody at the club needs to take the responsibility. A brand new player comes in, they need to be told and shown what the big games are and why they're so important. It needs to either come from the club captain or the manager, or somebody needs to be that sort of conduit between Wigan and Bolton. We've always hated Wigan. This is the tradition. This is the history. This is why when that game comes, you need to come with an extra 10%. I don't know who that comes from, but I feel like it needs to be someone has to have that role. And I feel like maybe that comes down to a culture hire of having a manager or a captain or someone of that ilk who understands what the big games are for that particular club that they now work for.
Yeah, just to add to what Scott was saying, I think it stems to, again, them local players playing for the, I think that will create that kind of ferocity when the matches are played, and it just builds that atmosphere again. If you have kind of local players playing for the teams. I don't know if Liam didn't think it was a good idea last time. What's your thoughts, Liam?
I don't know what to say to that, Luke, to be completely honest. But in terms of actual ideas to help local rivalry, I think increased away followings for those types of games is potentially a good starting point, because I think that will bring a certain edge to them. No one likes a big away following when it's their local rivals in the ground, and I think that will stir people up in a certain way. Obviously, police may not necessarily like that, but there we are. I also think the abolition of the midday kickoff time for big local games would make a big difference. It is.
Let the people booze.
Yeah. So I think this would make the spectacle better. You know, whether it comes with other problems, that's not really what we're discussing today. But yeah, I think those types of things would make a big difference. And potentially ensuring that the ticket prices are in line with other games, because usually these are higher ticket prices and it can make a difference in the lower leagues, not necessarily in the Premier League where you'll get a sellout anyway, but I think those types of things would make lower league derbies a lot more palatable.
Yeah.
What do you mind?
No, I agree. I think there's got to be more from a culture side, from the club, to be done to encourage and create an army behind you and create that tribalish experience that fans love, and then they'll cherish the big memories when you're part of your team's support. I think it's just got to come from the club. So I think that would be my fix as well. Just more. The club can do loads to do that, whether community stuff, ticket prices, building the culture, whether not just for the playing staff, but for, I'm on a bit more, the fans, and create a buzz around the area. That'd be my fix. Right, I've got a quiz for you all to wrap it all up. Ooh. Scott, where can Newcastle fans find you on Twitter?
At Blue Sabre SABRE 21.
Liam, how can people find us on Twitter as a group?
At Fixing Football.
Luke, what about the rest of our social media? Where can they find that?
YouTube.
Oh my fucking god. We was nearly 3 for 3. We were so close then. www.fixingfootballpodcast.com. Thank you everyone very much for listening. Please share and like and subscribe and do all that good stuff. It really means a lot. It's great to have all the boys back in the room. I don't know how long that's going to continue. We've got a lot going on at the moment, but we're going to keep trying. We're really enjoying doing this, so thanks very much. And cheers, guys. I'll speak to you all soon.
Bye, everyone.